I started getting involved with drugs when I was 15. It was the first time I smoked weed. And after that I was like, whoa, like, weed's cool, but like, what's all the fuss about all of these other drugs that the bigger cats are doing?
I had a couple of friends, they would use tuk, yeah, and then he gave me a hit. From there I just got addicted.
I got introduced to crystal meth when I was in grade 9.
The first time I actually took drugs was with my friends, and we were at a club.
In South Africa, substance abuse is generally a very big problem, and we have very different ways that it manifests itself in many of our communities. And it affects young children and youth very, very directly. And there are very specific issues why they take drugs, many times personal problems.
So some of the risk factors that we see in the communities are the low socioeconomic status of the children, of the parents as well. Many of these children are exposed to violence, exposed to abuse. They're neglected, they feel lonely, they feel bored. The substances are available within the community, it's down the street, it's very affordable.
A community can almost also be a risk factor in the sense that if it's, for instance, like our community is very the gangs are very active in the community, so children easily get pulled into gangs. That's a big risk factor. Challenges with schoolwork, so being academically challenged is a big problem, I think. Children aren't picked up by the system early enough and rather fall into drugs.
With adults, it's a lot easier because they see the damage that's coming. Because they can't pay rent, their lives start falling apart. With adolescents, it doesn't work like that.
The level of motivation that children or adolescents have is not the same as their parents or as adults. Their motivation for change has to do with peers. Peer pressure has to do with being cool, looking cool. Being the smartest kid in the class. Those are sort of levels of motivation that they have. They're very superficial and they're not very powerful motivators to change.
Amongst adolescents, what we're finding a lot is that they have parents who have alcohol and drug problems. Now, research tells us that those children are far more likely to use alcohol or drugs than others because they're living with unreliable people. They may or may not get to school, they may or may not get fed, and it very often is a coping mechanism. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Bishop's Lavis or Bishop's Court, you still go through the same pain, and people will do almost anything to get out of that. Teachers, educators, they've got no idea what's going on in that child's life.
I started using drugs to escape my reality, man. I hated the life I was living. I hated myself more than anything. And when I did drugs, I felt powerful, man. I felt like I at least have a label now. I'm at least not nothing. And I have something to defend. I would make scenes, stand on desks in class and that. It's, yeah, like my friends talking to me about how I was. I'm ashamed of it, man. And I'm someone that's embarrassed about nothing.
When I would feel like I'd feel hurt inside because I miss her, and then I would take a hit, and then for like a couple of hours I would be okay. Like I had no worries in the world, like nothing could bother me. It's like it happened, she died, she's okay now, she doesn't have to suffer with the things on earth anymore. That's how I would feel. Like I wouldn't cry because it's like I'm way too happy. That's why I got hooked to drugs, because it helped. At the time I thought it would help.
Throughout my high school life, I changed schools a lot in high school because I was never able to fit into any school environment. There was a lot of bullying in my high school career, and I never fit in anywhere. So they were just readily available everywhere. Everyone was doing them, and then they were like, "Oh, do you want to try them?" And we didn't want to seem like uncool, and so I tried. And the first time it was cocaine. The only drugs actually that I ever took.
At first I didn't want to smoke it, but I would say peer pressure kicked in at that time. So they didn't force me, or they just asked me, do you want to taste it, or do you use it? And I just took it, and For the first time, it had a big effect on me because I never felt anything like that.
I think one of the biggest challenges that many teachers face in many of our schools, and again specifically on our previously disadvantaged schools, remember our schools are in the middle of huge dysfunctional communities, and the dysfunctional communities many times starts with dysfunctional families, with substance abuse within one or of the parents or both, and so the role model for many of our children attending those schools are in fact the person who's addicted to whatever substance that they involved with. And so I think teachers have a very hard job.
Educators, because they're educators and that's a calling, not a job, they want to help. And people often do all the wrong things for all the right reasons.
The teachers often struggle with children in their school. They have big classes and they have a child who is giving problems, who's hindering the learning process for everybody else.
The types of things that we experience within the schools is that the educators themselves do not understand the nature of the disorder. It is because they don't understand the nature of the disorder that they take a more punitive stance towards substance. They truly want to help. It is just very difficult for them to understand why they should help somebody who they feel is doing something wrong and who was possibly harming other children and harming the school environment.
Educators are empathetic people. They have a passion for what they do. They're expected to be not only educators, social workers, parents, psychologists. They're expected to be everything, and it's overwhelming for them. Very often they overhelp, then they often become enablers.
The school I was at, meth is a major problem in that area, and like being a meth head was just like a normal thing there. All of my friends were meth heads, and it wasn't hindering my performance at school at all, because I would like to come to school every day so I can smoke meth or catch on nonsense with my buddies. A teacher told me straight in front of my class, like didn't pull me aside or nothing. She said, JC, you must stop smoking thick. It made me feel like I am nothing more but a meth head. I thought that's all I am, so that's all I'm gonna be.
They caught some of my friends using it on school, so because they wanted bad students, they had some good marks and their participating in school was good, so it wasn't something major.
The teachers that I had in my high school career were not people that I'd want to listen to about what's cool and what's not, you know. And also because they tend to, when people are speaking about drugs who have not taken them, they tend to not have, they don't know about them as much as someone who has taken them, you know. It takes someone like me who'll tell you that a high is actually quite nice. I will not lie to you. It's really, really nice. I won't lie to you and say it's not nice, because the day that you try it and you feel that this is really nice, this is really, really good, you won't trust me because you think that this person is a liar. You know, this made me feel good about myself. I'm going through whatever I'm going through, and this is making me forget, you know. The
Department of Social Development in the Western Cape started to initiate a number of activities to assist teachers to channel youth who are probably about to or before they are going to use any form of drugs.
Teachers need to be clued up what are the signs of drug abuse and substance abuse to identify it early enough, but then also to approach a child in a gentle, supportive way, not be judgmental, not be critical and harsh on children about abusing substances, because that will hinder the first step of the child just approaching the teacher.
One of the most positive things that educators can do is to have a plan. The educator sits down with the learner and says, right, you're beginning to display these sorts of behaviours. Do you have problems at home? And find out what's going on there. The last question should be, are you using drugs? And if the child says no, they go, we're so pleased about that, so please, can we just have a drug test? And that'll show us that we can rule that out and that it's another problem somewhere. And then if the test is negative, they will say, well, good, wonderful, well done. There's obviously something else going on, and they can refer them to the proper place. If the test is positive, they need to have a plan. Unless you have a plan in place actually you've caused more chaos than if you didn't know it. So the first thing is, if they've got a written policy on the structure and different steps that they take, that will help enormously. So it's very important that they know what to do so that they don't cause damage to the learner.
Before the child goes further through the punitive system, make contact with a psychologist, a counsellor, a centre, get advice and get the child referred.
One of the things is immediately contact the Department of Social Development, your local office, to try and hook into the resources as quickly as you can.
One of the best things that a teacher can do is to find something positive in the child, to affirm that and to keep affirming that. And if the child makes even the smallest of progress or step in the right direction, the child should be congratulated on that. It is motivational and the child will respond.
I think the teachers, there was no saving me at that time. There was really no saving me. Teachers can't be blamed when a student in the lights in front of a student and he refuses to see it. Like, really, that's not a teacher's problem. And there was a lot of teachers that would try to speak me, or they would make jokes and that, but then they would talk to me after class, and I wouldn't be able to accept their help, because I thought, I do drugs, but it's not a problem, it's cool. Like, I'm still doing what I need to do. I budgeted my brain cells just to be done with school. I was like, all I need is just stay working until my last exam, and you don't need to work ever again. That was my plan. I didn't have a plan after matric. Making matric was almost like my life goal, because I had no goals at that time. It's make matric and then, happily ever after. The opportunities, the schools always have opportunities like extramural stuff, whether it be drama or rugby and that. I was slightly interested, it was in the back of my mind, because I used to play rugby and I do like the stage, man. That's that's what I love. But now the drugs was just so much better, man. So much easier to do. So easy to just be an idiot. It's so easy to just decide I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. And meth helps you with that. You can't care when you're high. You can't. You can see or think of your worst experience you've had in your life, and will be that's nothing.
As the Department of Social Development in the Western Cape, we spent 87 million rand on our substance abuse program, and that is from early intervention to treatment centers. We have, when we came into this province, the first time when we as a government came in here in 2009, there were only 8 treatment centers. We have 24 now, and 8 of them are in inpatient residential programs. The others are all programs where we can come in and you can access treatment.
Nobody is the same. One size does not fit all, and therefore we've got to have an assessment, and that's more complicated with an adolescent than it is with an adult.
From an assessment or a screening, the child is then filtered, if you like, into various services. If this is a child who is at the experimental phase, they might be referred to counselling. And an appropriate counsellor would use techniques such as motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioural therapy to try and understand the point of view of the child and to try and help them to reduce or stop the substance. If it is more serious, where we see lifetime prevalence, we see that the child is unable to stop and it is impacting the functioning of the child. In that instance, we would try to refer the child to an outpatient centre. The outpatient centre would be to still keep the child in their community and still keep them going to school every day. They receive the services after school, but it's outpatient, meaning that it is a long-term commitment from the learner, and it requires at least 16 weeks of intensive treatment.
Why community-based or outpatient treatment programs are indicated as the first option is because people can carry on with their lives. They come in 3 times a week for 3 hours, well, twice a week on their own and once with their family, and it's a 3-hour-long session. For the first 8 sessions, thereafter it's an hour and a half long. So it doesn't take time out of work, it doesn't take time out of school, people can get on with their lives, they can go look for work, that sort of thing. They don't stay here, therefore there's not that huge cost. We don't keep them here for the full day, because that's just the same as an inpatient program, except they go home at night, which is the highest risk time. So what we look at in the outpatient programs, in the community-based programs, is what are your triggers? What do you need to avoid? It's all hard skills. When are your most difficult times? Let's put something in place for when it's difficult.
We make use of the matrix model. This is the 16-week program where we focus on relapse prevention as well as early recovery skills, education skills. This is what is offered after school 3 days a week, and it also includes an AA component as well as aftercare facilities for the child.
With the matrix model, it's very different to the more old-fashioned models where people go backwards into their life, they look at feelings, they have to relive, regurgitate what they've done, which brings up a lot of guilt. You know, when you've stolen your mum's whatever, curtains or iron, it makes people feel guilty. So that's not conducive to recovery. So what we do at Matrix is we go outwards and forwards. We don't get into the emotional stuff. We don't encourage the families to start having a go at each other. We look at where are you at now? What are your aspirations? What do you want to be? You can be that. It's all very practical stuff. We teach them about the brain, that this is not because they're bad people or stupid people or having fun. They don't have fun when they're in problems, but the body and the brain need the drugs. So we teach the families and we teach the people about the brain and about how the brain heals, because we're amazing creatures. Brains do heal. But it's much like diabetes, or that you have to manage your illness. So just as a diabetic, to get there, to live healthily, they have to change their diet, change their lifestyle. For somebody with a drug or an alcohol problem, they need to change their lifestyle.
For a child who we feel is not functioning and they are at risk to themselves and to others, we would motivate for inpatient care for that child because we feel that there is some immediate danger to self or others.
For a youth to come into a centre and be in an inpatient program is good because the child, often we see it's the first time this child comes into a safe, structured environment. They get to experience love, they get to experience acceptance, they get to experience structure and discipline in a healthy way. And that is, to them, often opens up a new world and a new side to the child. They get a lot of positive attention. We try on positive feedback rather than focusing on negative behavior, because that's what everybody outside focuses on. We have kids that come in for a 5-week period. It's usually a group between 10 or sometimes even as much as 20 boys, aged between 13 to 18, and they stay for a 5-week period. We present groups to them, mostly life skills groups. Also a lot of knowledge about substance, so what are the phases of substance abuse, how do I say no, how do I act assertively, how do I identify and speak about my emotions. I also think that often children are referred to a centre for inpatient and they are, substance abuse is not their primary problem. Their primary problem will be either conduct disorder or any other psychiatric disorder actually. And as a secondary, this child started using substances. Now they are being referred to our centre. We can address the substance abuse, but it doesn't really help. And we also struggle to address substance abuse if that's not the primary problem. So then we have a child with conduct disorder. His behavior doesn't get better through our treatment. Sometimes it even gets worse because they're self-medicating on substances. So to also make sure this child is assessed correctly to know, is this really the problem? Do I need to send this child rather for psychiatric help, or do I need to send them for drug abuse? The bad thing often with this is that they go back home, and home is exactly what caused them to fall into drugs in the first place. So that is not ideal, and that is the big challenge, I think, of drug rehab in the youth area. They are not in control of their circumstances. They can't just change homes. Lots of social problems. So that that I think is one of the biggest problems, is attacking drug abuse on a social level, on a community level, not just in the rehab where it's safe and it's like a little bubble for them.
With the school intervention program, we have in the whole Blue Downs area, there's a phenomenally well-run program, because it's a program based at the school. The minute any teacher discover any issue with substance abuse, he refers it to this psychologist who's completely and well-trained to deal with it. She then immediately starts working on the program, and we have seen huge success with it.
Having programs within schools is really, really helpful. It keeps the people in the community, the youngsters in the community. It means that the the therapists in the program can interact with the school. They understand the culture of the school, so it can be tailor-made to fit that community and that school.
The benefit of treating a child in an outpatient setting but on a school premises is really multifold. One of the biggest advantages is that we have access to that child. Most of the children who access our treatment are coming to school daily, and as long as they haven't dropped out, we can grab the child at almost any time to ensure compliance with the program. And one of the biggest facets for treatment is compliance with the program, so we don't lose them in the school setting. Also, we are visible. Children know where we are, they know where to find us. The support is tremendous simply because we are there. We are there during first break, we're there during second break. They see us, they can talk to us. These kind of things really increase and improve the treatment outcomes. Also, we can talk to their educators. We can go into classrooms and observe, so we get peripheral data which is necessary in helping understand the child. We really can support them through this program at the school. In terms of anonymity, we have various different programs. It's not only the substance abuse program that we run. So we have counseling, we have learning support programs, we have matric learning support programs. When the child enters the room, it is not automatically associated with substance abuse.
It means that people aren't, again, being stigmatized, because they could be going to see the counselor because of anything. So again, it's not, ooh, have you heard, so-and-so's been sent to rehab. And then when those youngsters come back from rehab, everybody wants to know, where have you been, what was it like? And people get very scared of going to treatment, because we hear a lot of negative stories, and we've got to dispel that rumor that, that treatment is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. If one is ill, we go to hospitals. Yeah? If you're ill because you've got a drug problem or an alcohol problem, you go to treatment. It's not a punishment. People don't deserve to be punished for it. It's just another health problem.
The thing that made me stop was that there's okay, for people that have never taken drugs, this is going to sound totally like, might not mean anything to them. But you get your high, whichever drugs that you take. The high is really high, but when you're coming down from the drugs and they're getting out of your system, they make you feel really horrible. You feel as though you get really paranoid, and it makes you really miserable. So I think that's where the addiction starts like kicking in, where you want to take more to get rid of take the edge off and get rid of the paranoia. So when you in that stage, you're thinking about your life, you're thinking about how you're destroying yourself, and you know how there's just there's only one way from here and it's downhill, and you know you actually think of those things, and it's really miserable and it's horrible. And as someone who's had 2 suicide attempts, I felt that okay, I'm probably going to kill myself when I'm paranoid one day, so I should probably quit this. And I'd realized that I spent like about 3 years not doing anything on the career front, and time is running out, and I'm getting closer and closer to 30, and you know nothing's happening, and it was bothering me, and I'm not building any relationships that I can carry through my whole life. And I'm at this, I felt as though I'm at the stage where I need to start, you know, thinking about the people that I want to carry forward with me and actually deal with my demons as opposed to just using the drugs as an outlet. So, yeah.
I just took a hit and we were finishing up and my mother called me and she asked me if I want to go to church. That night, when I was in church, like I had that feeling like I need to stop drugs, and I was sitting down there, and then when we had to go down on knees and then we were praying, and then I started to cry because I thought to my sister, like she wouldn't like me doing this, and I can feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this drugs and stuff. And I told myself when I walk out by the door tonight, I'm gonna change, like I'm just gonna quit. And I pulled the line, threw the line, and then I said no, I'm done with drugs.
When you use stuff, you don't focus on yourself. And many people try to help me, try to send me to a rehabilitation center. But I told them they can send me, but it depends on me if I want to stop. Because you can only show me the way, but you can't force me on that way. I ended up with a bad friend at a bad time, at the wrong place. So by the time we got caught, I was still, there was a lot of drugs in my system. So in 2008 I went to prison. I was still addicted to the drug. I was there for say about 3 months. So and I saw that most of my friends that use these drugs, they become aggressive. They fight with their friends and families and do all those bad things, and they end up dead or being someone else's slave or do jobs for the guy who's selling the drugs. So I thought to myself that I don't want to end up like that. I'd rather start now while I'm in prison to get rid of this drug. So when I came out in 2012, there were still temptations because on the outside there's more drugs as in prison. So I stay put at home. I don't go to friends, or they rather come to me. And I told them that if you're still using drugs, don't come to me when you are in the influence of that drug, or when you have that drug. Don't come to me to ask if you can smoke it in my house. I thought to myself that I can do it.
How I stopped using was I changed my lifestyle, but changing your lifestyle is only half of it. You need to change your friends. You cannot be with any of your old friends. No matter how much you change, they didn't change at all. So you're gonna go back, and what has changed? You think you've changed, you're gonna just jump back into that same loop. Because if you're like, alright, I've changed now, I went through this rehab program, I wanna come correct, but now because I wanna help my friends as well, they just bring me down with them, man, because it's like they won't accept my help if I'm not on the same level as them. Like it's almost like I have a holier than thou attitude because I didn't smoke for a few months. Since I became sober, I got into I've been making music, and I've been loving it, and been getting into the real life program and film and the whole entertainment industry is what I love. It was a dream that I discarded years ago. Like before, like it was one of those when you were a kid and you want to be an astronaut type of dreams. And now it's coming real. Like I sometimes wake up thinking like this stuff must have really messed up my head, because yesterday it didn't feel real, but I don't have a choice but to believe it because it's on film.